Hey guys, this is ASMRcade back again. Today is the first episode of films I've seen recently. I know a lot of people do like Blu-rays or DVDs they've bought recently, or games they've bought recently, but in all honesty, I just don't buy a lot of games or Blu-rays, so I figured this would kind of be the next best thing. There's not going to be a lot going on visually, so if you just kind of want to turn this off and play it in the background or something. But for those of you that don't know, I have the service MoviePass, which I'm just kind of covering up because it has my name on it, and I don't know if anyone can do anything with the number, but this is a subscription-based service where essentially you pay either $35 a month or you pay for a subscription, like a gift subscription, which is what I did, and you can see a movie in theaters every day for, in my case, 6 months. They also had an option for a year, but I'm going to be going to college in the fall, and I won't have an access to a car, so, plus it's going to be probably really busy for my first semester. So you'll also probably notice I'm in a different environment. That's just because my normal filming area is a disaster area right now, because the reason that I haven't uploaded in way too long is because the last 2 months of my life have just been crazy. I had to write a 15-page paper, I had to prepare for a formal debate, I had to work on about 1 million other assignments and deal with personal stuff and travel, and it's just been hectic as all hell. And also, I haven't really thought of any good ideas for videos, and I wanted to actually have a good idea of something I wanted to make instead of just force something out. I'm just gonna drink some water. So, I have seen quite a few films. I figured I could just kind of talk about them, talk about my experience seeing them, and what I thought about them. So, I've got a nice little stack of ticket stubs here, because I collect them. I've been collecting for about 4.5 years, and I have a couple hundred of them. So, I don't know if they're in order or not, but I'll just go ahead and start with them. This was an Anomalisa and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot double feature. I have no idea why they put those two in the same double feature, because they have basically nothing to do with each other. I actually just went to see Anomalisa. I wasn't really interested in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. But Anomalisa was a genuinely really beautiful film. You can probably look up where this theater is and find out where my house is in a 50-mile radius. But I thought it was really, really well done, but it did kind of frustrate me because it came out in December, and it said in theaters everywhere January. I don't know if you can see this, but it didn't play near me. I don't know if that'll focus or not. Until March 19th, which was a long time to wait. But I did wait, and I really, really love the film. It's really not for everyone, though. It's pretty graphic, pretty dark, and just very strange. Just the way it's made and everything about it. So that was the first film I saw. Next, we have Eye in the Sky, and I noticed they actually, I don't know if you can see this, but right there in really small text, that actually says theater copy, so the guy ripped off the wrong side and gave it to me, because you can see right here, they're a little bit different, and these are from the exact same theater. Sorry, just talking like this really dries out my throat. But, this is Eye in the Sky. I really, really like this film a lot. It's a very small scale, well produced thriller, and there's not a lot of action. There's no car chases or anything. It's basically people in different conference rooms talking and discussing what they think the best plan is. And I know that probably doesn't sound too interesting, but I promise it is. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was very intense throughout the entire duration. Really, the only complaint I have is that at times it looked a little cheap. Like certain shots kind of took me out of the story because they felt something more out of a TV movie, but I'm sure this had a very low budget in comparison to other things I've seen. This actually ended up doing pretty well at the box office, which I was happy about, but I think a lot of the interest came from this being Alan Rickman's final on-screen performance, and he actually did really well in this. He seemed very human, very rational, and I liked how it manages to tackle such a complex and polarizing issue in a way that shows the fairness of both sides of the argument, because I'm guessing pretty much everybody is going to have an opinion on what they think they should do at the beginning of the situation, and that opinion will probably change at least somewhat by the end of the film. Because you may think, well, they should easily just do this and get it over with, but then 10 minutes later it can make you think, well, we can't do that. Showing the different viewpoints and not just feeling very one-sided really helped us, I think. This is a very rewatchable thriller that I'll probably... Sorry about that, my phone rang and I had to pause the video. Next up we have Batman v Superman, and as you can tell, this is obviously a different kind of ticket stub. This is from a local theater called the Movie Tavern. It's a smaller chain. There's only like 2 within my area, like within like an hour from me. And I think there's only maybe 20 or 30 of them in the country. But essentially it's a dine-in movie experience. But as you can see here, it's seat G8, reserve seating, seats first. And I really like how they do the reserve seating, because you can basically, they show you a grid of the different seats and you tap which ones you want on the computer, and then you get the tickets right there, or you can do it on Fandango or whatever. But this is a really nice theater because you can essentially order alcohol or food. Like they have full meal dinner options as opposed to just popcorn and candy. Of course they also have those, but I have kind of fallen in love with that place, mostly because of the recliner seats and the reserve seating, because the other theaters in my area, the seats are just the normal stuff and they're not very comfortable, but being able to just lie back while watching something is really fantastic. I think this is kind of the newest gimmick they're doing to sort of get people out of their homes to go see movies, because I think a lot of people just want to stay home and stream stuff, but for me, I'm always open to new kind of theater experiences. As far as Batman vs. Superman goes, I strongly disliked it. I really didn't find it well produced. It wasn't particularly well acted. It was just a mess in terms of pacing, and it would just kind of go from one scene and then smash cut to another one without any sort of grace or flow. It just kind of felt like a series of scenes slapped together rather than a really well-written story. I know it's kind of become the film that everyone loves to hate, but I saw this on opening day and I knew that the Rotten Tomatoes score was bad. Definitely worse than I expected, but I said, you know what, I didn't really hate Man of Steel all that much. I'm gonna try and go in with an open mind and see what happens, but ultimately I just ended up disappointed, frustrated, bored, and felt like I had wasted my time. I'm not really sure how I feel about the future of the DC universe. With Suicide Squad, the only thing is, for the first Comic-Con teaser that everybody loved, it seemed very, very dark and had no humor whatsoever in the trailer. And then the second trailer was kind of a dark comedy with the Bohemian Rhapsody, but still kind of a, darker vibe than most of the stuff in the Marvel Universe. And then the third trailer with Ballroom Blitz was just full-on comedy. And any movie where the tone changes that much in the advertising, it can't be all three of those, so it's either going to be falsely advertised in one or a tonally inconsistent mess. But getting back to Batman v Superman, I didn't like how Superman was always portrayed as the bad guy. Lex Luthor was just nonsense, and he was like the only rational person in the entire film, because I think having a silver bullet backup plan for this insane alien that can destroy the entire planet is not necessarily the worst idea. I'm not going to delve into spoilers, but I could easily rant on this movie for another half hour, so I guess I won't. Next up, we have Hardcore Henry. This was at another different theater, because I saw this after school, and it was just closer to there than it was to driving another half hour. I actually ended up being the only person in the theater, which was kind of awkward, but at the same time, it was a really fun experience. I think you could probably cut this film down 10 minutes and it would be way better. But it was just kind of fun to see a movie that was so bizarre and over-the-top violent, playing in, 3,000 theaters, and I could pretty much tell that mainstream audiences were going to hate it, and I guess I was right, because it's kind of bombing at the box office, but considering it was like a no-budget festival acquisition, that's not bad. I just thought it was basically exactly what they marketed it as, and if you were disappointed, then I'm not really sure what you expected it to be. Next up, we have Midnight Special. This was at the same theater as the other two. I ended up being one of 3 people in the theater for this one. Sorry. Which was kind of disappointing, because I like seeing the smaller, kind of low-profile releases do better, but this movie is not really making much of anything at the box office. Kind of mixed feelings on this one. I thought the first half of it was really great, and then after that it sort of started to fall apart and turn into schlock, but the ending in particular I really disliked, but there is a lot about this movie to enjoy. I thought that the mystery aspect in the beginning was really effective, and I constantly wanted to know what was going to happen next, which is a rare thing in movies these days, because usually they're just spoiled in the first 10 minutes, but it definitely kind of had an aura of a modern indie version of kind of a 70s or 80s Spielbergian blockbuster. I definitely got vibes of Super 8 and Close Encounters of the Third Kind while watching this, but again, the last 30 minutes I was pretty disappointed by. Next up, we have The Jungle Book in IMAX 3D. This was at the only IMAX theater near me that's actually a legit IMAX and not a fake IMAX. For those of you that don't know, there's essentially 2 kinds of IMAX theaters. There are the IMAX Digital, which they just take the biggest auditorium in a theater and upgrade it to have a bigger, more curved screen, and upgrade the picture quality and sound. But the screen size is pathetic in comparison to the real ones. The real ones are the ones that use 70mm projectors and have been there for a long time. I think there's a map if you Google like Imax versus Limax, and you can look at the one near you and see if it's real or fake. I will say that the fake IMAXs are still nice, but they shouldn't charge nearly as much as they do for them. But anyway, this was a really, really great film. Basically, with MoviePass, what I had to do was just check into one of the normal show times and then pay the extra, like, $5-something for the IMAX surcharge. But Jon Favreau is a really great director, and the visuals in this were very much justified in seeing it in the giant 3D screen. Speaking of which, the 3D in this is genuinely impressive. It managed to feel very real and very intense at times, which I was not expecting. This is definitely closer to a PG-13 than a PG, in my opinion. I don't think this is really marketed towards, like, smaller kids. There were actually a few little kids in the theater that got kind of freaked out by certain things that were happening. But overall, a really effective, really well-produced blockbuster that I would recommend. Just got 2 more. I've been to like 5 different theaters over the last month. We have Demolition. This is the Jake Gyllenhaal indie drama where his wife is killed in a car crash and he kind of loses it because he doesn't know how to respond to it. He's trying to be happy and sad at the same time, and he's just sort of freaking out and can't handle how he feels about anything. And he finds a sort of primal enjoyment out of destroying things, so he teams up with I'm not going to go too much into it because I thought it was an okay film. I had to drive kind of far to see it because it was in limited release. This movie was a big old flop, if I remember correctly. It opened in like almost 900 theaters and took in like $360,000 on its opening weekend or something, which is not a good result. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal really did a good job, but it wasn't particularly compelling throughout most of it. I found myself kind of not overly interested in what was happening at times. It definitely felt, it had all the notes of the indie drama, you know, the troubled gay teen, the quirky main character, the death of a loved one, and black humor. You know, it wasn't particularly original, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a decent 6 out of 10. Finally, at that same theater, I saw 10 Cloverfield Lane. I've actually seen this 3 times because I really loved it, and it's a great movie. I saw it on its Thursday 7 p.m. preview, and then I saw it again a couple weeks later, and then just last night my dad wanted to see it, so we went out and saw it, and despite the fact that there were a couple idiots that would not shut up during the entire film, he said it didn't even bother him because he loved it so much, and I was just so happy to hear that. Even though this doesn't have a lot to do with the original Cloverfield, I still think it's a genuinely well-made thriller. Fantastic pacing, great writing, great blend of humor and paranoia and mistrust and scariness and action. It's just a really, really great film. It never feels like it's going too fast. It never feels like it's going too slow. Everything about it felt earned, as in, you could tell when something happened, it wasn't just happening for the sake of the plot. It was set up and accomplished in a way that made sense, not to mention the main character, Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, was a really smart character. Probably one of the smartest characters I've seen in a, I'm not going to say it's a horror movie, but I guess you could say a scary movie, because I think anyone can agree that the idea of waking up chained to the wall in some creepy dude's rape dungeon is probably a pretty scary concept. But she reminded me a lot of Ripley from Alien. Alien and Aliens are two of my favorite films of all time, but just the kind of resourceful, smart, but not just a completely cold, emotionless killer. She still had the human element to her and had the character she was, emotional for and wanted to help, which was, in this case, Emmett. And I just thought she really gave off that same kind of vibe. If they ever made a prequel or a sequel to Alien, I think she would do a great job playing Ripley's daughter. I'm not really sure what's happening with Alien Covenant or the Neil Blomkamp Alien film. I'm kind of very anxious. I think Alien Covenant has a much better chance at being good, because I've heard District 9 is good, but I've never seen it, and my only experience with Neil Blomkamp has been Elysium and Chappie, both of which I thought were terrible. So seeing my favorite film, one of my favorite film series, getting treated that way is disappointing. But I mean, who knows? You got a crappy director that could make a really good one, because he had a really great director, David Fincher, that ended up making Alien 3, which I know he despises and wants nothing to do with. Anyway, I got on a huge tangent. 10 Cloverfield Lane. I am obsessed with this film, kind of. I bought the giant poster, the Imax poster from Regal Crown Club. Took me like 1,000,000 credits to get it, but that's okay. I already pre-ordered it on Blu-ray, and that was my third time seeing it on the big screen. If you don't know anything about this, go see it. I can pretty much recommend this to anyone. Very intense, very suspenseful, smart, super rewatchable thriller. Go see it. And I believe that concludes my films that I have seen for this past couple weeks. As you can see, there are quite a lot of them. And yeah, I hope this gets a decent reception. I noticed, despite the fact that I haven't uploaded in like 2 months, I've gained like almost 10 subscribers, which is awesome. I'm up to like 73 already, which is insane. So anyway, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this series, leave a comment or a thumbs up, because it lets me know if I should continue. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.